All right. The point I was making was that I've always been very uncomfortable with the idea of modernity that is predicated on a huge, time difference, between, let's say, Africa and Europe. For instance, in which Europe is modern, seen in its institutions, technology, infrastructure, and Africa is in some distance back, traditional is the word. I've always, had big problems with this idea because it assumes these two entities are living in different historical time, which is really, really not true. Africa, in my own understanding of it, is very, very modern. And especially in the area of differences that we like to give, which is, the question of technology, the question of, infrastructure. I like to refer to the question of African poverty, which is always the undercurrent of this, because you see all these images of people in the rural areas and having great difficulties in the farms, and so on. And my point is that the kind of poverty that Africa has today is a very, very modern poverty. It was produced by modernity itself. The kind of poverty Africa has had, since colonial rule, in fact, since contact with Europe, has no precedent in the entire history of Africa at all. There's nowhere in the history of Africa before, contact with the West that you have the kind of poverty that Africa has today. There's nowhere to explain it, to understand it, except within the modern condition, when Africa came into contact, with the West. But what people don't understand is that modernity never promised anybody that we will all be equal, you will all have high rises, you will all have fast trains. No. Modernity, was a certain kind of mode of production in which it was like, the best analogy was, it was like a war, and some people won and some people lost. Walter Rodney, in How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, has a famous phrase to show how the technological stagnation of Africa, is linkable to the history of imperialism. He used to say Africa went into colonialism with a hoe and came out with a hoe. So we're talking of 80 to 90 years in some places where indigenous initiative, was completely frozen. And these are actually in the records. There's nothing, there's nothing mysterious about it. It's just that the way modernity has been studied, we've been fixated with, denying, the fact that these two places are living in the same historical time. And the specific example I gave was the Congo, that it is absolutely ridiculous to think that Congo is not modern, but Belgium is, because these two entities lived in the same historical time. And the modernity in the conventional sense of Belgium is totally linked to the situation that we have in the Congo today. This is one-to-one, this is 2 + 2 = 4. This is not a question of interpretation at all. We know the story. We just don't like, telling ourselves, that story. I think the importance of this idea is that it allows us to rethink modernity as the heritage of all of us, and the fact that it was some kind of adventure that humanity engaged in at some point in time, and some people paid the bills more than other people, and that is so. In essence, this is a global issue. It's not the issue of one place being modern and the other place not being modern. It's the question of modernity and the underside of it, and the struggle should be to make to even out the extreme inequities, which you can see even inside Europe itself, even inside America. So it's not just Africa, Europe. So this is the point I was trying to make.